when to use avere and when to use essere. Well, actually, it's about when to use essere. And this picture is called the house of essere. The reason why we're going to focus on when to use essere is because the majority of verbs in Italian take avere. So it's actually much better to focus on the verbs that take essere. So if you don't have a verb in those categories, in the categories of verb taking essere, you know that you have to use avere. So let me just show the picture real quick. Here you see a lot of verbs and a lot of things going on in this picture. We're going to break down this picture and talk about all the categories of verbs that actually take essere. So again, if you have a verb that doesn't fall in any of these categories, you will probably need to use avere. Let's start from the first category, verbs suggesting motion. Usually, verbs suggesting motion, verbs that involve a kind of movement, take essere. Let me give you a comprehensive list of verbs taking essere that suggest motion. The first one, of course, is andare, to go. So we would say sono andato, I went. Now you would say sono andato if you're a man, sono andata if you're a woman. I'm going to give you the masculine forms of the past participle just to make the video a little bit quicker, but just be aware that since we're using essere, you need to change the past participle according to the gender and number of the subject. So let's continue with the list. Then we have venire, sono venuto, I came. Salire, sono salito, I went up. Scendere, sono sceso, I went down. Cadere, sono caduto, I fell. Partire, sono partito, I left. Entrare, sono entrato, I went in, I entered. Uscire, sono uscito, I went out, I exited. Ritornare or tornare, they are the same thing. So, sono ritornato or sono tornato, I came back or I returned. Arrivare, sono arrivato, I arrived. Let me give you a couple of useful sentences with these verbs. Sono andato a fare shopping con mia sorella. I went shopping with my sister. Sono ritornati a casa alle 2. They came back at home at 2. Sono arrivata in ritardo a lavoro. I arrived late at work. Now let's talk about the second category, verbs suggesting no motion. Now, this is honestly so funny because the first category is literally verbs expressing motion and the second one is verbs suggesting no motion. But this is the way it works. So if you have a verb that gives you the idea of you staying still, then you're going to use essere in passato prossimo. Mainly, we have three verbs: stare, rimanere, e restare. Stare, we would say sono stato, I stayed. Rimanere, sono rimasto. It's an irregular past participle. Sono rimasto, I stayed or I remained. Restare, sono restato. Again, I stayed, I remained. They are pretty much synonyms and they kind of mean the same thing, but they are very, very common and we use them all the time. Let me give you some examples with these verbs. Sono rimasta a casa ieri sera perché ero stanca. I stayed at home last night because I was tired. Siete mai stati in Italia? Siete mai stati in Italia? Have you ever been to Italy? Have you guys ever been to Italy? Just one quick little note. Here I'm using the verb sono stato in the sense of essere. This is because sono stato means both I stayed and I have been or I was. Don't forget that the passato prossimo of essere and stare is actually the same, but more on this later. And now let's go to category number 3. Verbs suggesting a change of state. So if you have a verb that kind of involves the idea of something changing and developing, then you're going to use essere. We mainly have 4 verbs in this category: crescere, diventare, nascere, morire. So crescere, we would say sono cresciuto, I grew up. Diventare, sono diventato, I became. Nascere, sono nato, I was born. And then the last one, morire, sono morto, I died. For example, I could say something like sono nato e cresciuto in Italia. I was born and raised in Italy. Now take essere. And now last category of today. And actually this category just has one verb, essere. Yes, the helping verb of essere is essere itself. Now just remember that the past participle of essere is irregular and it's stato. So as you can see, the passato prossimo of the verb stare and essere is actually the same because the passato prossimo of stare is sono stato and so is the passato prossimo of essere. For this reason, sono stato might mean three things. I was, I have been, and I stayed. Of course, you can understand the meaning and the translation in English based on the context. Alright, so if you have a verb that doesn't fall in any of these categories, you're just going to use avere. Of course, there are also other verbs that take essere.